The stars outside the window of the transport ship looked calm, but inside the human delegation there was no calmness at all. Commander Elias Kane sat in silence, his hands folded on his knees, staring at the dark stretch of space that separated him from the alien world of Velara. Around him, diplomats whispered, officers reviewed security codes, and aides carried data tablets with nervous movements. It was the first time humans had been invited to the alien court, and no one could predict how the Valerans would receive them. Elias was not a diplomat. He was a soldier. His job was not to negotiate or to speak polite words, but to stand tall, represent human strength, and protect the delegation if anything went wrong. Even so, as he sat among the officials, he felt something heavier than the weight of armor pressing against his chest. The mission carried history with it, and history was rarely kind. The Valarans had been enemies once. 10 years ago, humans and Valarans clashed across colonies and star systems, their armies burning through battlefields that left scars no treaty could fully heal. The war ended without victory for either side, only exhaustion. Peace was fragile, and now Elias and his people were stepping onto alien soil to see if trust could be built from ruins. The shuttle descended into the alien atmosphere. Through the thick viewpanes, Elias saw the planet below, green continents wrapped in silver, rivers and strange forests that shimmered like crystal when the sunlight touched them. The capital spread across the valley like a woven tapestry of white stone towers and glowing bridges. At the heart of it rose the royal citadel, tall and curved like the petals of a flower opening toward the sky. Beside Elias, an older diplomat cleared his throat. "Remember," the man muttered to the team, "this is not just ceremony. The queen herself will preside. She does not show her face often, and it is said she remembers every detail, every insult, every kindness. Do not give her reason to doubt us." Elias gave a small nod but said nothing. He had seen commanders and generals, warlords and kings. Queens were no different, or so he told himself. The shuttle touched down on the landing platform. Alien guards in armor that gleamed like polished bronze waited in strict lines. They were tall, their skin shades of pale silver or blue, their eyes luminous under the sunlight. The humans disembarked, standing straighter than usual, trying to match the formal grace of their hosts. Music of unfamiliar instruments echoed as they were led into the palace. The corridors shimmered with crystals that pulsed faintly with energy, casting soft light across walls carved with ancient patterns. The air smelled of flowers and minerals, something sharp, yet strangely calming. Elias walked behind the diplomats, his boots heavy against the polished stone. He felt the gazes of the alien guards watching every movement, weighing every gesture. His hand rested lightly against the side of his uniform where his sidearm would normally be, but weapons had been forbidden in the palace. He felt naked without it. Finally, they reached the grand hall. The ceiling arched so high it seemed to vanish into clouds of light. At the far end stood the throne, carved from a single block of crystal that glowed faintly as though alive, and upon it sat the queen. She was younger than Elias expected, though age was difficult to measure in her kind. Her hair, long and flowing, shimmered like threads of silver fire. Her skin glowed faintly, and her eyes were deep violet, sharp and calm as if they could pierce straight through stone. She wore no crown, only a mantle of woven light that draped across her shoulders. But there was no question. This was a ruler. The human delegation bowed, and Elias lowered his head slightly, keeping his eyes forward. When he finally looked up, he found the queen's gaze fixed on him. Not on the diplomats speaking formal greetings. Not on the ambassador offering words of peace. On him. Her eyes widened slightly, and for a moment the calm mask of royalty broke. She stared at him as if she had seen a ghost. Elias shifted uneasily under the weight of her attention. He had stood before generals and killers, but never had someone looked at him with such shock. Shock mixed with something else, something he could not name. The diplomats continued their introductions, unaware of the strange silence stretching between the soldier and the queen. Elias kept his stance steady, but his mind raced. Why was she looking at him? Had he done something wrong already? The queen rose slowly from her throne. The entire hall went still. Her voice, when it came, was smooth and melodic, carrying across the chamber without need of force. "You have traveled far," she said, addressing the humans. "We welcome you to Velara." The diplomats bowed again, speaking thanks, offering gifts of technology and knowledge. The queen accepted with formal nods, but her eyes kept drifting back to Elias as if unable to leave him. Elias avoided meeting her gaze directly, but he felt it burning into him every moment. His mind stirred with half-forgotten memories, battlefields, smoke, the cries of the wounded, faces lost in time. He shook the thoughts away. The past was the past. But the queen did not forget. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the ceremonial gift from the humans. She quickly passed it to an attendant, her composure cracking for a heartbeat before she regained it. The ceremony ended, and the delegation was escorted to a banquet prepared in their honor. Long tables filled with strange dishes stretched across the chamber. Musicians played soft melodies. Diplomats exchanged polite words, and alien nobles whispered among themselves. Elias stood at the edge of the room, keeping watch, his soldier's instincts never resting. But he felt her gaze again before he saw her. The queen entered the hall quietly, walking among her people, speaking briefly to her advisors. Then her eyes found him once more. This time she did not hide it. She stared openly, her lips parting, as if she wanted to speak but held herself back. Elias looked away, his heart unsettled. Why? He was nobody special to her, just a soldier among many. Why did she look at him as if she knew him? He remembered once, years ago, pulling a wounded alien from the rubble of a burning city. She had been young, barely more than a girl, terrified, and bleeding. He had shielded her from fire, carried her across the lines, and left her with medics before running back into the fight. He had never known what became of her. He had not even seen her face clearly through the smoke and dirt. Elias shook his head. It could not be. That was just one memory among hundreds, a fleeting act in a war filled with them. Surely the Queen of Velara could not be that same girl. But when their eyes met again across the banquet hall, something inside him whispered, otherwise. The queen turned abruptly, whispering something to her attendants. Then without warning she left the hall. Her advisors hurried after her, their faces concerned. The music faltered for a moment, the guests murmuring in confusion. Elias watched her disappear through the tall doors. His heart beat faster, though he could not say why. He did not know it yet, but the past he thought forgotten had just walked back into his life, and the queen of an entire world remembered what he had done. The station lights dimmed into the cycle that marked night. The endless halls became quiet, the markets closed, the voices of traders fading into silence. Ethan remained at his post, standing guard outside Soraya's chamber. It had become a pattern. Every day she spoke to him until her voice grew tired, and every night he stayed nearby, listening to her final words before she rested. But tonight, her words were different. When the chamber door opened, Soraya stepped out quietly. She wore a plain robe instead of the flowing gowns of royalty. Her hair fell loose and her violet eyes held a strange mix of fear and determination. She looked at Ethan, her lips pressed tight for a moment as if she wanted to stop herself, but then the words spilled out anyway. "Walk with me," she whispered. Ethan frowned. "It isn't safe. Your guards—" "They will not stop me," she interrupted. "I need you, please." He hesitated only a moment, then nodded. They moved. Through the dim corridor, their footsteps echoing softly. The station was nearly empty at this hour, the air humming with the sound of machines and distant engines. Soraya walked with her head low, but her voice did not stop. "Do you wonder why I was silent for so long? Do you wonder why I spoke only when I saw you?" "I've thought about it," Ethan admitted. "I don't understand it." She turned to him sharply, her eyes glowing faintly in the low light. "Then I will tell you, but when I do you must not turn away." Ethan nodded once. "I won't." She drew in a shaky breath. "My voice is not like yours. Not like any humans. When I speak, My words carry power. They sink into minds. They bend hearts. When I was a child, I thought it was a gift. My songs could calm storms. My words could end quarrels. But soon others saw what I could do. They wanted me to command armies, to break enemies with a single sentence. They wanted me to be a weapon. Her voice faltered, trembling now. The first time I realized the danger was the night of the fire. Raiders attacked our home. My father tried to protect me, but they were many. I was only a girl, but I screamed, and my scream tore through them. Men fell to their knees. Some begged for mercy, some fled in madness. I did not mean to. But it happened, and from that moment, I feared myself. Ethan walked silently beside her, his jaw tightening. He had seen weapons of every kind, blades, rifles, bombs, but never a weapon carried in a voice. Soraya continued, her words flowing faster, as if she had been holding them back for years. My advisors said I must never speak again. My father agreed. They said silence would protect me and protect others. So I obeyed. I closed my lips and buried my voice. But inside it burned. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to sing. But I could not. Every word was a danger. She stopped walking and turned to Ethan, her hands clenched. Do you understand now? My silence was not a choice. It was a prison. Ethan looked at her carefully. Then why now? Why me? Her eyes locked onto his, fierce and unblinking. Because when I speak to you, nothing happens. My words do not sink into your mind. My voice does not bend you. You listen, but you are not controlled. You are free. For the first time in years, I can speak without fear of harming someone. Do you know what that means to me? Ethan's breath caught. He understood now why her words poured out endlessly whenever he was near. It was not just relief. It was freedom. She could finally be herself because he was the only one she could not break. But before he could answer, a sound echoed down the corridor. Heavy footsteps. Voices in a language Ethan did not know. Soraya stiffened. Ethan's instincts kicked, and he pulled her gently back into the shadows. 3 figures appeared at the far end of the hall. They were cloaked, their faces hidden, but the weapons they carried were clear. Not guards, not servants. Assassins. Ethan's hand went to his rifle, his body tense. Stay behind me. But Soraya shook her head fiercely. They came for me. I can stop them. Her lips parted, ready to unleash her voice. Ethan placed a firm hand on her shoulder. No. You said your words can drive people mad. You can't risk this. Not here. She stared at him, torn, but then nodded reluctantly. The assassins moved closer, blades glinting. Ethan raised his rifle. The first shot rang out, echoing through the corridor. One of the assassins dropped. The others rushed forward. Ethan fired again, but one dodged and leapt. The clash was fast and brutal. Ethan's training took over. Sharp strikes, quick dodges, precise shots. In moments, the last assassin fell. Breathing hard, Ethan lowered his weapon. Soraya stared at him in awe. You protected me, without power, without voice, only with your strength. That's what soldiers do, Ethan said, though his chest still heaved. Her eyes softened. No, that is what you do. You fight for me not because of duty, but because you choose to. The station guards soon arrived, alerted by the gunfire. They dragged away the fallen assassins. Questions were asked, reports were written, but the truth was clear. Someone wanted the princess silenced again, perhaps forever. The royal advisors grew even more fearful. They demanded she be kept under constant watch, her freedom restricted. But Soraya refused. She stood before them in the council chamber, her voice ringing out for all to hear. I will not be silent again, not for you, not for anyone. My voice is mine, and I will use it. If you fear it, then you fear the truth. The advisors shifted uncomfortably, but they could not silence her now. Too many had heard her. Too many had seen the miracle. That night, alone with Ethan once more, Soraya looked at him with quiet intensity. Do you see now why you matter? You are the only one who can stand beside me without fear. The only one I can speak to freely. That is why I will not let you go. Ethan met her gaze, his voice steady. Then I'll stay. And as her endless words filled the night once more, Ethan realized that whatever fate had tied them together, it was only beginning to reveal itself. The station never truly slept. Even during the quietest hours, there was a hum of engines, the occasional clatter of maintenance droids, and the soft whisper of distant corridors. Ethan kept his post outside Soraya's chamber, alert and ready. After the previous night's attack, he knew danger could strike again at any moment. The thought did not frighten him. He had faced death before, but the responsibility of keeping Soraya safe weighed heavily on him. Inside, Soraya paced the chamber. Her hands moved constantly, twisting the folds of her robe, her violet eyes darting toward the door every few moments. I can feel them, she whispered, her voice low but tense. They will come again. They will not stop until I am silent forever. Ethan studied her. She looked fragile, but he had learned by now that fragility was only a mask. Then we prepare, he said. We don't wait for them to strike. We stop them before they get close. Soraya's lips pressed together in thought. You always speak so calmly. Even when there is fire around us, you do not panic. How do you do it? I do what I must, Ethan replied. Fear is for those who cannot act. You are not powerless, princess. You are dangerous, but in your own way. I will not let anyone take that from you. She studied him silently for a long moment, then nodded. You are strange, human. Perhaps that is why the stars led you to me. Ethan only shrugged, not knowing what to say. Words felt unnecessary. Actions mattered more. The first strike came just before dawn. Sensors in the corridor blared alarms and lights flickered as the station's automated defenses hummed to life. Ethan grabbed his rifle, signaling for Soraya to stay behind him. Through the doorway he could see movement, figures cloaked in black, armed, moving with precision. They were not ordinary assassins. These were trained killers, sent by enemies who had tracked Soraya across systems, determined to seize her voice for their own purposes. They are too many, Soraya whispered. I could stop them, but... Her hands shook. I could not control them all. Not yet. You won't have to, Ethan said. Just stay with me. The first group of attackers reached the chamber. Ethan fired quickly, taking down one before it could raise its weapon. Others darted behind the walls and columns, shooting. The air was filled with the sharp smell of ozone from energy rifles, the echoing clatter of metal, and shouted orders in alien tongues. Ethan moved like water flowing between threats, covering Soraya and taking shots with deadly precision. Soraya watched, gripping the edge of a table. Then she stepped forward. Her lips parted and a low hum filled the air. It was not loud at first, but the hum carried a weight that made the attackers pause. Their eyes widened. One of them froze mid-step, clutching its head. Another stumbled backward as if invisible hands pushed it. Ethan's eyes widened in recognition. She was using her power, not loudly, but enough to confuse them. Don't push too hard, he shouted. You can hurt yourself. Her eyes met his and she nodded. She focused, slowing her words, guiding the power, controlling it like a river. The attackers hesitated, their steps faltering. Then, as Ethan moved among them, firing and blocking, Soraya's voice rose, clearer and stronger. This time it was not random force, it was precision. Each word targeted their fear, their hesitation. They were still dangerous, but they could not attack with confidence. Ethan took advantage of the confusion. He pushed forward, disarming and disabling with skill honed in battle. 2 attackers fell before reaching him. Another retreated under Soraya's subtle influence. The final one hesitated, staring at her, clearly unsure whether to fight or flee. Ethan approached and disarmed it with a swift strike. When the hall was finally clear, Ethan turned to Soraya. She was breathing heavily, but her face was bright, exhilarated. You controlled them, she said, awe in her voice. Even without touching them, you guided them. Your presence, it is steady. They could not resist you. You guided them too, Ethan replied. Together, we did it. She smiled faintly, a mix of relief and wonder. I have never felt so alive. I feared my voice, my power, but with you, I'm not afraid. Not anymore. The royal guards arrived moments later, rushing past Ethan to secure the hall. They exchanged glances, clearly impressed but still wary. Some whispered to each other, eyes on the princess, trying to understand the bond between her and the human soldier. Soraya stepped toward Ethan. Her hand brushed his arm lightly, a simple touch, but it carried warmth and reassurance. You see why I cannot stop speaking? You see why I cannot hide again? You are the first one who makes me safe to use my voice, and for that, I owe you everything. Ethan only nodded, his jaw tight. We survived. That's enough for now. For the next hours, they moved through the station, checking corridors, securing entrances, and ensuring no further attackers remained. Soraya's voice flowed constantly, narrating her thoughts, observations, even feelings, though she kept the more dangerous power of her words controlled. Ethan listened, offering guidance and keeping her safe. Each time she spoke to him, the bond between them grew stronger. When they finally returned to her chamber, exhaustion settled over both of them. Ethan set his rifle aside and sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. Soraya moved to a low cushion, still speaking softly, though her words were now filled with lighter thoughts, stories, and questions. Do you ever sleep, Ethan? She asked. He shook his head with a tired smile. Not well. Not when you talk. She laughed quietly. Then I will keep you awake a little longer, but not with danger, with stories. I have stories of my people, of the stars, of nights that burned with fireflies. I will share them with you. And so she spoke, her voice no longer a river of fear, but a stream of light. She told him of crystal forests, of twin moons reflecting in oceans of liquid silver, of childhood games she had played before war had darkened her world. Ethan listened, fascinated, understanding more about her people, their culture, their joys and sorrows. As the station outside hummed with routine activity, they were alone in a pocket of calm. For the first time, Soraya felt safe to speak without fear, and Ethan felt a responsibility beyond duty. He would guard her, not just from assassins, but from a universe that had always feared her gift. Hours passed and the night deepened. Soraya finally grew quiet, leaning back on her cushion, her violet eyes soft and tired. Ethan watched her, a sense of quiet pride filling him. She had faced the danger of her own voice, the threat of assassins, and had emerged stronger. And yet she leaned on him in ways she could not on anyone else. Tomorrow, she whispered, we will face them again. They will come, but we will be ready. Ethan's gaze met hers. We will be ready. Together. She smiled faintly, then closed her eyes. The room grew still, filled with the soft hum of machines and distant stars beyond the station windows. But even in that silence, Ethan knew their bond had deepened. Words, danger, and courage had woven them together, and nothing in the galaxy could undo it. As he sat watch, the first hints of dawn touched the station, pale light streaming through the observation windows. Soraya slept lightly, her hands folded over her robe. Ethan remained alert, knowing the peace would not last, but confident that whatever came, they would face it together. For the first time, he felt that being a human soldier was not just about duty. It was about standing beside someone extraordinary, someone who had trusted him with her voice, her power, and her life. And for that, he would never falter. The station was alive again with movement. Traders hurried through corridors, maintenance droids clanged along the floors, and passengers filled the observation decks. But for Princess Soraya, the world had changed entirely. She no longer feared her voice. She no longer feared herself. And she no longer feared anyone who had once tried to control her. Ethan walked beside her through the halls, his rifle slung over his shoulder. He had slept little. Yet the night's adrenaline and the bond he shared with Soraya made him alert. sharper than he had felt in months. She moved with quiet confidence, her head held high, her violet eyes scanning the crowds. People whispered as she passed, some in awe, some in disbelief, but none dared to approach her. They could feel her presence, the quiet power that radiated from her, tempered now by her trust in the human beside her. "Ethan," she said softly, breaking his thoughts. "Today, they will come again." He glanced at her. "I know. Are you ready?" She smiled faintly. "I am ready because you are with me. You do not fear my voice. You do not bend to it. You simply listen. That is all I need." Together they moved toward the central council chamber, where the alien advisors and rulers awaited them. The hall was massive, filled with species from across the galaxy. Many had come to see the silent princess, drawn by rumors and curiosity. Some had come with fear, hoping to witness her obedience or failure. Soraya stepped forward, her voice steady. "I have spoken to one who does not fear me, one who listens without being influenced, and because of this I am no longer silent." Her words carried clearly, strong but calm, flowing without the chaos of unchecked power. She gestured toward Ethan. "He stands with me, and I choose him as my companion, my protector, my voice in this world." Gasps spread across the chamber. Some of the council whispered to each other, shocked that a human soldier could hold such importance beside the princess. Others simply stared, unable to reconcile the miracle of her words with the history of silence they had known. Ethan felt a strange mix of pride and disbelief. He had never sought recognition, but standing beside her now, he realized the weight of their bond. It was no longer just survival, no longer just duty. He was part of something larger, something that would ripple across the galaxy. One of the council elders stepped forward, his face serious. "Princess Soraya, your voice is dangerous. It has been a source of fear and conflict. Why should we allow you to speak freely now?" Soraya met his gaze, unwavering. "Because my voice is not a weapon when it is spoken with trust. It is not dangerous when it is shared with one who stands beside me without fear. I have been silent for years because I was afraid of myself and of what others would do with me. But now I am not afraid, and I will not hide again." Her words echoed through the chamber. Some of the rulers lowered their heads, uncertain how to respond. Others whispered that this was unprecedented, a human breaking the barriers of alien tradition simply by existing beside a princess who had once been feared and silenced. Ethan felt her hand brush against his arm. She did not need to speak. Her touch was reassurance, a silent promise that they faced this together. He nodded, understanding. They would face the council, the enemies, and the galaxy together. Then the doors to the chamber burst open. A group of attackers had returned, bold and determined. They were armed, moving with precision, intent on seizing Soraya. But before they could reach the hall, she stepped forward. Her voice rang out, stronger than ever. Each word was measured, flowing over the attackers like a tide. They froze, disoriented, their confidence shattered. Ethan moved quickly, intercepting those who tried to advance. Shots rang out, strikes echoed, and the hall became a battlefield. But Soraya's voice was the key. She guided, disrupted, and confused without harming anyone unnecessarily. Her words carried authority, yet they were tempered by restraint. She was no longer a weapon of destruction, but a beacon of control. The attackers faltered, then fled, unable to resist both her voice and Ethan's steady defense. The council gasped in astonishment, realizing that the silent princess had not only survived, but had controlled the battlefield in a way no one could have imagined. When the dust settled, Soraya stood tall, her eyes shining with triumph. She looked at Ethan. "Do you see now? I am free. My voice is mine, and I choose how to use it." Ethan exhaled, lowering his weapon. "I see, and I am proud to stand beside you." Her smile was radiant, genuine, filled with the relief and joy of someone who had carried unbearable weight for too long. "I will speak to the council, to the people, to the galaxy," she said. "I will no longer hide, and I will speak because of you." The council slowly came forward, some bowing, some still hesitant, but all acknowledging her courage. The humans and aliens alike began to understand the message. Fear could not bind her, and the bond between her and a human soldier had changed everything. Later, as they walked through the observation deck, overlooking the stars that stretched endlessly beyond the station, Soraya spoke quietly to Ethan. The galaxy fears what it does not understand. My voice, my power. It frightens them. But with you, I am not afraid. Together we can face anything. Ethan nodded, feeling the truth in her words. Then we face it together, no matter what comes. She rested her hand on his, a gesture, simple but profound. You have given me something no one else could. You have given me the courage to speak, to be myself, to trust. That is more than any soldier could ever be asked to do. You made it easy, he said softly. I just stayed beside you. No, she corrected him. You stood where no one else could. You listened. You understood. That is why I can speak. That is why I am alive in a way I have never been. The light of the twin moons reflected in her violet eyes as they watched the stars. The station, below, moved like a living creature, but up here they were alone. For the first time in years, Soraya could rest without fear, without silence pressing on her chest. And Ethan realized that in protecting her, he had found something he did not know he was seeking. Purpose, connection, and the quiet triumph of standing beside someone extraordinary. Days passed, and the news of the silent princess speaking spread through the galaxy. Diplomats, traders, and travelers all spoke of her words, of the human soldier who had unlocked her voice, and of the courage they displayed together. Some doubted the story, others revered it, but all agreed on one thing. Humanity had earned respect, not through power or conquest, but through courage, loyalty, and understanding. Soraya's first public address was a moment the galaxy would never forget. She spoke of peace, of cooperation, and of trust. Her voice, once feared, now inspired hope. Every word carried wisdom and strength, but also warmth and compassion. And standing beside her, Ethan knew that their bond was no longer a secret. It was a symbol of what humans could offer: courage, empathy, and the ability to bring out the best in even the most extraordinary beings. At the end of her speech, Soraya turned to the crowd. Her eyes swept across every face, and then she looked directly at Ethan. I was silent because I was afraid, she said. But now, with him beside me, I will never be silent again. Not for fear, not for enemies, not for tradition. I will speak my truth, and I will stand with those who are brave enough to listen. The assembly erupted in applause. For the first time in years, Soraya's voice was free, and it carried across the galaxy. And Ethan, standing quietly by her side, felt the quiet pride and fulfillment that came from being part of something greater than himself. He had not just protected a princess. He had helped awaken a voice, a leader, and a symbol of hope. When the chamber cleared, Soraya took Ethan's hand, her smile gentle. We did it, she said. Ethan shook his head slightly, a small smile forming. You did it. I just stood with you. But I could not have done it without you, she insisted. You gave me the courage to be myself. That is a gift greater than any crown, any power, any title. They looked out the observation windows again, stars stretching endlessly before them. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown dangers and endless possibilities, but they would face it together, one human soldier and one alien princess, bound by trust, courage, and the unspoken understanding that they had changed each other forever. And as the station hummed softly beneath them, Soraya spoke again, her voice filled with hope, strength, and freedom. Ethan listened, smiling quietly, knowing that in a universe full of silence and uncertainty, they had found something extraordinary: the power of words, trust, and the human spirit. The galaxy had never seen anything like it, and it never would again. The news spread faster than any ship. By the next day, everyone on the station knew. The silent princess of Therial had spoken, and not only spoken, but spoken endlessly. It was a miracle, a scandal, and a mystery all at once. The royal court tried to control the rumors, but it was impossible. Merchants whispered it to their customers, workers repeated it in the docks, and soldiers joked about it in the barracks. Every tongue carried the same story. Soraya's silence had ended, and she had chosen a human soldier as the reason. Ethan did not like the attention. He had never sought fame. But as he walked through the halls the next morning, eyes followed him. Some filled with curiosity, some with suspicion, and some with envy. He kept his head down and continued to his post, but he knew life would not return to normal. It never did after moments like that. When he entered the princess's chamber, again he found her already waiting. She was sitting on a cushion near the floating lights, her hair loose around her shoulders, her hands folded in her lap. The moment she saw him, her face lit up. She rose quickly and crossed the room, her gown whispering against the floor. "You came back," she said, her voice warm, almost eager. "I feared you would not." Ethan gave a small nod. "I'm assigned to guard you, princess. Of course I came back." But she shook her head. "Not because of duty, because of me." He hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I go where I'm ordered." Her eyes softened, but her words kept flowing. "Still you came, and that means I can speak again. Do you know how heavy silence is? It is like chains around your chest. It is like drowning while awake. I carried that weight for so long, and now it is gone. With you here, I can breathe again." Her words struck him harder than he expected. He had lived with silence of his own kind, silence that came after battle, silence that filled his nights when he remembered faces he could not save. He understood in a small way what she meant, though he had never spoken of it. She circled him slowly, studying him as if memorizing every detail. "Your face, it is the same as in my dreams. Your eyes, the same as when I saw them in the fire. I thought you were only a vision sent to comfort me, but you are flesh. You stand before me." "I still don't understand," Ethan admitted. "We've never met. I've never seen you before yesterday." "But I have seen you," she whispered. "I do not know why. Perhaps the stars wished it. Perhaps fate wove it long before we were born. Does that not frighten you?" Ethan shook his head. "I've seen worse things than fate." She laughed softly. It was a strange sound, unsure at first, as though she had forgotten how to laugh. But then it grew warmer, filling the chamber. She placed her hands together and looked at him with something like relief. "Then I will not be silent anymore. I will tell you everything. Even if no one else listens, you will." And so she spoke. She spoke of her homeworld, with its mountains that shone like crystal and oceans that glowed under twin moons. She spoke of her childhood, when she ran barefoot through the royal gardens before war darkened the skies. She spoke of the night her people were attacked, the night her voice first revealed its strange power. Her words tumbled over each other, some clear, some broken, but all alive. Ethan listened quietly, saying little, but his presence seemed enough. She did not want answers. She wanted to release the flood that had been locked inside her for years. At Tui, times she would pause, searching his face as if to make sure he was still real, still listening. When she saw his steady gaze, her words would begin again. She told him about her father's sorrow, about the enemies who had tried to use her gift, about the fear that grew until she chose silence as her only safety. Her voice trembled as she remembered, but she did not stop. She could not stop. Ethan realized she was not only speaking to him, she was speaking because of him. His presence unlocked her, and now she could not close the door again. The royal advisors were not pleased. That evening they called Ethan aside. In a private chamber, 3 of them stood before him, their robes heavy with silver embroidery, their faces sharp with suspicion. "You must understand," one said coldly. "The princess's voice is not a simple thing. It is dangerous. For years she has kept it hidden. Now because of you, she will not stop." "I didn't do anything," Ethan replied. "She chose to speak." That is the problem, another snapped. She speaks to you. And you alone. Why? What hold do you have over her? Ethan's jaw tightened. None. I don't control her. She does what she wants. They exchanged uneasy looks. Finally, the eldest advisor leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. Then hear this, human. Whatever bond exists between you two, it must not disturb the order of the court. You are a soldier. She is a princess. Do not mistake her words for attachment. Ethan met his gaze evenly. I'm just doing my duty. But even as he said it, he knew it was not true. He was beginning to care. Not because she was royalty, not because of her beauty, but because he had never seen anyone cling to words with such desperation. He could not turn away from that. When he returned to her, she was pacing the chamber, restless. The moment he entered, she rushed to him. What did they say? Did they try to take you from me? No, Ethan said calmly. They warned me. That's all. She frowned, her eyes darkening. They fear me. They fear my voice. But with you here, I am not afraid. Do you know what it means to me? To speak without fear? Ethan shook his head. Tell me. She reached out, almost touching his hand, then pulled back. Her voice lowered. It means I can be alive again. Ethan felt something stir inside him, something he had buried long ago beneath duty and silence of his own. He did not answer, but he did not look away. She smiled faintly, as if his silence was answer enough. The days passed, and Soraya's voice filled them all. She spoke when she woke. She spoke as she walked the halls. She spoke until her throat was raw. She asked Ethan questions about Earth, about oceans and forests, about songs humans sang and battles they fought. She tried human words, laughing when she mispronounced them, eager to learn. She told him stories of her people, of stars they worshipped, of legends whispered by firelight. Sometimes her words were heavy with sorrow, sometimes light with joy, but always alive. Others watched in awe and confusion. Servants whispered that the human soldier had broken the curse. Guards exchanged glances, uncertain whether to fear or admire. The advisors grew more anxious, whispering of dangers, but Soraya ignored them all. Her eyes followed Ethan, her words poured toward him, and she seemed blind to anyone else. One night, as he stood guard outside her chamber, Ethan heard her singing softly within. The melody was strange and haunting, unlike any human song, yet beautiful beyond words. It carried through the hall, drawing listeners. For years her people had longed to hear her voice again, and now it returned not in council or ceremony, but as a quiet song meant only for the soldier outside her door. Ethan closed his eyes and listened, feeling the weight of her gift settle inside him. He did not know what future awaited them. He only knew the present, the sound of her voice, the warmth in her eyes, the endless river of words that had been dammed for too long. And as he listened, he realized something impossible. He did not want her to stop.